Tonight, I'm gonna call the meeting to order, the December 11th, 2023 Forestville School District Board of Directors meeting called to order at 5:31. Roll call of board members present. Valerie Huron, I am here. Christie. Here. Brad.
Here.
And Krandusky is here. Okay, great. And Mark, might
Yep. I'm here.
I can't see your face, so, but we have the.
Oh.
Great. All right. Flag, flag salute, please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and introduce our audience. Start over here.
Ricky Carter, Director of Nutrition Services.
Juliana Kelly, Principal, Neil Armstrong Middle School.
Vaughn McBee, School Resource Officer.
Colleen Lord, Assistant Principal at Forest Grove High School.
Mark Hughes, the next show, I'm proud to be, and I am your facilities manager. John Wheels, Assistant Superintendent. Health Safety Security.
I include business.
Larry Gavignon, Technology Department. David Warner, Communications.
ASBCD.
Great.
Another easy.
Well, are you guys gonna say your names for us?
Oh, Belinda Francisco.
All right, hi, Belinda.
Paula.
Hi.
Debbie McGinn, Nate's mom.
Hi, Mom. Fan shout out, we like it.
Diana Rodriguez Smith, Union Rep. That's good. Sharon Levy, Union VP and sixth grade teacher.
Great, thanks everybody for coming. Approval of tonight's agenda, can you get a motion for that?
I move to approve the agenda presented tonight.
All second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Correspondence and celebrations, really quick before I pass it off to Christie. Yep, yeah, okay. Before I pass it off to Christie, I want to shout out the Vikettes who had a competition this weekend, and they took first in kick and second in palm, did an outstanding job. They're a great group of ladies and fun to watch. Also, the Viking cheer had a competition, and their JV team took first in the JV game day division, and the varsity team took third. So congrats to all those people.
Oh, I was at Cornelius last week, and the staff decorated their doors. They were absolutely outstanding with lights and fun activities, and the spirit of the holidays was very rampant. Having a good time.
All right.
And I just have one celebration, so last Friday, I had the pleasure of watching a group of kids playing together on a stage to overcome adversity. Some said it couldn't be done. And as a fan watching this happen, I have to say that I actually was moved to tears, and it was a very exciting day for me personally. And I'm talking, of course, about the Forest Grove High School jazz concert that was on Friday. And so I brought my dad, my 83-year-old dad, to go watch the concert. And I wrote down a couple things that really struck me about this particular experience. One was the community. I know we're really working on community engagement, but when you look at who was in the audience and how people brought not only their families, but extended family, and also what I noticed is the diversity of the band itself, which you don't see, or at least I didn't see when I played in band way back. And that was a really nice representation. And one of the things Stuart asked is how many people were new to this jazz band ensemble, and I think there were 9 or 10 kids that were playing for the first time. But there are a couple things that happened that were really, actually, we did get a little teary. I mean, the music was wonderful, but there was a moment where the combo stood up and talked about how they were student-led. And so Stuart was sitting in the audience at this point, and they complimented the fact that at this particular school, which they've noticed at other high schools isn't always the case, he really empowered the students to lead and grow themselves. And so that was just a really cool moment. The second thing that maybe a teacher or mom might notice on stage was they gave every kid in the ensemble the chance to solo. And you knew that some of them, he mentioned that they practiced being nervous, and they talked to the kids about being nervous and then still playing when you're nervous. And And when you watch that happen in real time and the kids are going down the row and he's kind of silently coaching and encouraging, there was one saxophone player in particular, and you could tell there was maybe any possibility that she wasn't gonna do it. You could just sense that she was kind of doing the, yeah, I don't think so. You know, parents know what that looks like and teachers know what that looks like when you're trying to get a kid to participate in class. And you just watched as the music was playing and it was getting closer to her point, and I'm just sitting there going, yeah, okay, let's see what happens. And you could just watch Stuart kind of encouraging, pushing, but then backing off, and she was thinking about it, but then maybe not. And then eventually he just kind of said, you could tell that his message was like, we're all good, you know, feel like doing it great, you don't feel like doing it. And then she stood up, probably because she couldn't even, I mean, it was right her turn, and she just kind of stood up, I think maybe to surprise even herself, and she just started playing, and it was great. And it was just the way that we're doing things, and the way that I know, not just in band, but in the bike hats and the cheer, I know all the people who do that and teachers, but it was really a great experience overall, amazing music and a wonderful vocalist, a couple, Diego Sanchez and then Abra Freeman. And it was really something to see. So definite celebration.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. At this time, we're going to hear from our student rep, Nate.
Hello, everyone. So I don't have too many announcements. So we are currently kind of closing out the month, but I do have a few. So we have a choir concert on Wednesday that I'm very excited. Had an athletics assembly last Thursday at the high school. We are beginning our ASD election, so that's pretty exciting. We're also thinking about restructuring some of ASD. So there's gonna be some new stuff coming to that. Sources of Strength is going to have their second meeting this year, which is kind of like a suicide prevention program that I'm part of, and it's a really great program, and we do a lot of outreach activities for our community, so it's really cool, and that's gonna be on Wednesday. There is a staff breakfast on, don't know the logistics on that one, but we also have something coming up on Friday. I believe it is labeled in the calendar as a unified rally. I'm not exactly sure on the specifics on that one, but very exciting regardless. We also had some guest speakers in ASB. We had Mr. Hess and Officer McBee, which is really great. They did a great job. And I also have some ASB students here, Belinda and Paola. They actually run our our service committee, which run some of the stuff like food pantry, and a lot of great stuff. And recently we actually talked about it in school board last meeting, I believe, where we appreciated our support staff, which is a great thing. So yeah, I'm really glad they're here. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have, but thank you.
I was wondering, Nate, about did you guys have that dance that you're doing, your fundraising dance, and how that went?
I'm gonna be honest, right now, since we're kind of restructuring with ASB, there's kind of a lot of things up in the air, and that's why I was kind of like, I don't really know when to unify. Yeah, I don't know when some of this stuff is happening. I was sick last week, so I kind of out of the loop, but from what I've heard, we're still gonna have it. We just don't know the exact date anymore.
Well, we're glad you're feeling better. We're able to make it tonight. All right, thank you. Okay, this time we're gonna hear from Superintendent Parker.
Yeah,
Oh,
you guys have a,
you want them to go before you?
Yep. They,
Go after you.
oh, do they?
Yeah.
Sorry, me messing it up. Thanks. Wow, I can't believe that we're already 4 days away from break. On the slideshow here are kind of some pictures from around the district of different classrooms kind of celebrating the holidays and such. So it's been fun to kind of watch them. We want to celebrate tonight. We're thrilled to announce and celebrate the remarkable achievements of our outstanding educators in Portia Cove School District. Melissa Minier King, an ELD facilitator at NAMS, has reached the challenging milestone of attaining national board certification in the area of early adolescent English as a new language. We presented last spring kind of about this program. We have multiple staff that are moving towards their certification. We also want to celebrate, congratulations to Sienna Garrett, the reading facilitator at Joseph Gale, and Christina Meinica, the FGSD student success coach, because they just renewed their board certification. So again, heavy shout out to them. It's great work. As we begin to move forward, having more and more of these board certified, and the board certification, what makes it stand out is they're doing all the reflection, they're doing all the work. It's not that they're going to someplace and getting, it's like they do all of the introspection about what's going on in their classroom. They work with the organization, but it's really a great program. We want to talk just briefly, you guys mentioned a couple of them, but our wrestling team finished the Army Strong Coast Classic. Boys took, out of 44 teams, the boys took 9th. We had Archie De La Rosa was champion, pinned the 3-time state championship in the finals, so that was awesome. Second place, Brandon Cook, Carter Bennett took 2nd and Brandon Cook took 4th. Our girls wrestling team finished 3rd out of in that tournament. Champion, Kennedy Blant, Renee Cook, champion. Kennedy Blanton, champion, and Kailia Takahashi was the champion and the awarded girls 135 and above outstanding wrestler award. So again, the wrestling team is off and going. They're at Century, I think tomorrow or Wednesday night. With that, I think I'm gonna pass it back. We have a full agenda tonight.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, now FGA.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Gotta make the long walk.
I am my formal attire today. It was pajama.
Lucky you.
Hello, Sarah Sebi. This is on. Do I need to be on?
I think it's fine.
It's all right.
It's all right.
So I am here to say that we have had our vote on the calendar for next year. It has been ratified, strongly supported, and thank you to the board for asking for teacher voice and hearing what we had to say. Making decisions, including us. That's it.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a
Appreciate
long
it.
walk for.
Yeah, the walk is long as the dog. Okay,
So just, before, so I think with that vote, we just need, do we need to write up the, MOU? Is that the basic gist?
Yes, and classified.
Right, right.
Okay.
Good.
okay, great. And it'll show the changes for the conference, because it doesn't show it on the calendar, we adjusted it, right? Okay. Kathy, do we have any unscheduled public appearances? No. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is made up of routine, non-controversial items to be voted on under one motion. Are there any items within the consent items the board member or the superintendent wishes to discuss separately? Okay, I'm gonna make a motion, to approve the board minutes of the November 27th, 2023 meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Esther, we're gonna move on to presentation. School resource officer, we're gonna hear from Pat Hess, Bob McGee, Colleen, and Leanna.
And we put chairs up here for folks to come up and sit down on these. Oh,
Sure. We do. We absolutely do.
Please be on it too. Because I guess I should have said. We have a panel.
I'm Gordon Parker, great to be here tonight. The subject very near and dear to my heart. We want to give you a little update on the SRO program here in the school district. So I think first we'll start with just a little itinerary of what we're doing. If the next slide, please, Enrique. So I'll start with just a brief history. Colleen's going to give me the hook if I go too long. Then we'll go into the state of the IGA in bullet points and required training officer bonds went through, operational procedures we developed, special events been involved in, role and policy violations. We have some hard data collection, and then we're going to kind of keep it real with Colleen, Julian, and Vaughn giving their perspective on things that we're going through and going on. So anyway, first we'll go to the history. So for well over 25 years, we've had Fort Crow police officers in our schools serving as SROs. The likes of Officer Ralph Ferris, Tom Siciliano, Ernie Villaraldo, Barry Gordon, and Jeff Fox have shared their talents and experience with our staff and students, help provide a safe environment for our kids and staff. Tom Siciliano, in fact, is actually still attached to the district as a wrestling coach. In May of 21, the decision was made to end our longstanding partnership with the Forest Grove Police Department and discontinue the SRO program. This change proved to be challenging for our administrators, our staff, and our students. Removing the SRO did not eliminate the situations that require police response in our schools. Law violations, uncertain student behavior, abuse reports, trespassers, and other unwanted persons on our campuses, and other conditions persisted. Rather than have an officer dedicated to live in our building or be only a cell phone call away, we're at the mercy of the cumbersome calls in our emergency, the call prioritization of the police dispatch, and then third step, the prioritization of the call by on-duty officers. We had some slow response times. Officers responded to our schools that were not familiar with the school environment and not committed to working with our kids. This caused us some frustration and extra work for our staff. Follow-up of incidents was inconsistent, many times leaving victims and our staff without sustained support, and administrators uncertain on how law enforcement would move forward on an incident. Probably the biggest piece that we lost, that's a lot, but the biggest piece is having that direct connection to the police department who has a direct connection to the community. Weekend incidents happen with our kids, and on Monday morning, without an SRO, on Monday morning, there'd be scuttlebutt and we'd be scrambling to find out what happened. Now, that's huge, just having somebody there for us so we can ask and get that communication between the school and the community. The decision to reinstate the SRO program for 22-23 was a relief to our school and a gift to our staff and students. Low staffing levels at HPD, however, or Forest Grove PD, delayed our implementation another year. But now we're back, and the restart of the program gives us a special opportunity to rebuild and build what we want as an SRO program with good direction. In March of 2023, a panel consisting solely of Forest Grove School District personnel selected Officer Vaughn McPhee to serve as our SRO. Officer McPhee formed again with us in September. He hit the ground running and he hasn't stopped. He hasn't even slowed down. And as requested in part of the IGA, we're going to be presenting some data and some other things in regard to what's going on with the program. So next, we'll hit the actual roles of kind of to get back to our direction and where we're going. So the 3 bullet points we focus on are fostering positive student climate, and that's to build a school culture of open communication and trust. The education piece, which is so important, becoming a member of the educational team, representing law enforcement with an equity lens to build positive relationships and to embrace teachable moments. That's to jump in and give that information when we need it. And also the law enforcement piece, the safety piece, to provide investigative and law enforcement services while avoiding school policy and discipline issues. And those are the 3 bullet points we focus our whole program around. Okay. So we'll start with operational procedures, and most of these are bulleted right out of our IGA. We've established a chain of command. Within the district, we have a loose chain of command that just directly focuses on our coordination with the Forest Grove Police Department. Mr. Parker has asked that I fill that role, and I maintain close contact with Captain Maslin, who is not on direct supervisor, but next up. Also, we have monthly meetings with Forest Grove School District administrators, Forest Grove Police Department, Cornelius Police, and administrators from the high school, middle school, and Tom Paul. And monthly, we get together and talk about police issues, safety issues on our campuses, and share a little bit of information about that. Daily schedule, Officer McPhee coordinates with the people he works most closely with, mostly with Colleen at the high school and with Julian at the middle school, who represent their staff well and help on schedule time for efficiency and coverage. Special events, another bulleted item. Don't expect Officer Bond to be at football games, but he was. And also attended homecoming dance, so he's involved in other special activities. Obviously, the law enforcement response is huge, not only providing safety in our schools by wandering around campus and stuff, but making sure that all investigations and arrests don't disrupt the daily school routine. And also the last one, again, very important, school policy violations, discipline issues are not the role of our SRO. And we've been able to manage to maintain that.
In fact, I think we missed one bullet, the uniform.
Oh, the uniform. Folks, one of the biggest ones for me. Officer Bond is in his uniform that he wears in school. So you notice not that cumbersome outer vest with all the stuff hanging off it. Just everything is clothing that makes him so much more approachable. And melding better with our school staff. Dress more like an educator as opposed to a police officer, while still having all the tools he needs as an officer. Thanks, Jacob, appreciate that. Training, again, bulleted points. Officer Bond completed basic school resource officer training, 40-hour course through the National Association of School Resource Officers, and that was in July of 2023. The DEI training, diversity, equity, and inclusion, he completed actually more than 8 hours with the district, and that is in addition to the in-service training provided by the police department, which they do a lot of. So that's good. We plugged Bond into all training requirements the district has for instructional assistants. So they're bulleted up there, but any instructional assistant in the district has to go through all this training. And we asked Bond to take care of that and do that, which he did. The last part, we are working with student services to schedule disability, safety care, and trauma-informed care training. That's a little cumbersome because we got to get more involved with student services schedule to get those up and going. We should have those done by the end of the year.
I think those training requirements are also for certified staff as well, like all staff.
If Pat, do you mean the end of the school year or by the end of the month? The other training is gonna be done.
Oh, no, we get it by the end of the year. Yeah, so
What, can you go back to that slide? I wanted to see, so what training has he not received?
it's the department,
The trauma informed care. I mean, we can't get that done before the end of the school year?
we will get it done. Yeah,
Before the end of the school.
yeah, we'll get it done before the end.
But so, I'm just, my point is just like, he's gonna work a year without having that training.
No, again, I think there's an incredible amount of training built into this IGA, and he has completed 7/8 of it. The other two pieces we're still working on, but they will have a safety care training. We'll work on getting them into that as soon as we can. But it's not the, again, the amount of training here is immense.
Yeah, I know, that's kind of a big one.
Yeah. The other piece, we're stuffing a lot of things into a small box right now. And the other piece that, part of that, even though it's called trauma-informed care here, Officer Bond received training from the police department in very similar things. So it's not quite apples to apples training, but it's very, very close.
Pat, is this training that he's gonna go through every year? Is this an annual kind of training process?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, some of it is in the SRO training, national SRO, he won't go through that every year, but like the equity requirements and all of those, he continues to sit with both dams in the high school. So he's continuing to get that. It's one of the things that, I mean, I'll steal some thunder here because of one of the issues we're gonna have is like when we wrote this IGA, there's some things that aren't thought through as far as like, what is the continuing, once he gains this, what are we doing every year? What do we make sure? So there's some changes we're gonna probably propose in that IGA.
I guess that's why.
Yeah.
That's a lot in 1 year. I do agree with Val with the trauma informed, maybe should be a priority at some point. But yeah, that's just my opinion.
I mean, over the pest control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really, it is.
It's a
It's a hard task.
I know, and I, I won't be getting further.
When did you begin working? When did you begin working for the district?
I'm sorry, say again?
When did you begin working?
I started my actual like SRO training in the summertime because I had to accomplish a lot of training before working inside the schools, but September.
September.
Yes.
Okay, before we get to the data, I'm turn over to Vaughn for a second. A couple things to keep in mind when we get the data piece. First of all, this is very, very difficult to gather. Caitlin Hensman from IT helped me immensely in setting up a data sheet for Vaughn to fill out. It's cumbersome, but he's doing a good job of keeping track of things. I know just watching Vaughn and based on my experience in SRO, he's captured probably about 2/3 of what he actually does. And the other piece that I think is important is that we are covering 50 days of school. We have a very, very short period of time. So I think as he goes through his stuff, his statistics and the numbers, kind of keep that focus in mind as to where we are with that piece.
Yeah, thank you, Pat. Board, thank you for your time in inviting me. Superintendent Parker, thank you as well. Again, Officer Bonnet, Forest Grove Police Department. Working as a school resource officer for the Forest Grove School District has really just been a labor of love, to be quite frank with you. I'm going to go over some data. So like Pat had said before, I'm documenting in this format of data where I'm going and what I'm doing, and I'll explain more about that. So these are going to basically be like calls for service right here, what you're seeing. So for Neil Armstrong, I'm up at about 65 calls. Is out of the 125. Forest Grove High School up at 100. So as you guys can see, between Neil Armstrong and the high school is where a majority of my time spent. Tom McCall, I've got some calls there. Fern Hill Elementary, a good amount of calls. Oak Grove Academy, I've been pretty busy up there. Harvey Clark, the alternative school, also known as Cal. Got Tom McCall Upper. You've got Echo Shaw Elementary, limited amount of calls, but just for perspective, those are the main schools that I'm servicing within our district. Next slide, please.
We go back to call for service. A call for service for a street police officer is when they get a radio call to go do something, so the process to get there before they get the call. For Vaughn, none of these have been non-emergency calls non-emergency or 911 calls. These are incidents that happen in the school and an administrator or a student has tapped Vaughn and said, hey, this is what I got. So there's that absolute direct connection to the officer.
Yes, thank you, Pat. And that's very important. So these aren't calls where I'm, a citizen or an administrator or a student is calling the 911 non-emergency number or calling 911. They're calling my cell phone directly, so they have direct access to me. And what's beautiful about that, quite frankly, is that I can then get on the radio, spinning up resources, getting them there immediately, depending on what the situation is. So admin and staff aren't waiting on the phone tree of non-emergency, waiting for an officer to respond. They're going direct with me, who then gets on the radio and distributes resources as needed. Thank you. So as far as kind of what I am tracking as well is calls for service. So again, calls for service, that's when my phone's ringing, when an administrator or staff is like, hey, a student needs to speak with you, or hey, this is an emergency, this is what's going on. Investigations, so those are stemming from calls of service. So any criminal investigation that I'm doing, I'm logging. Community outreach is a big one. So basically like any outreach I'm doing with the community, whether it's students in the parking lot or parents that pick up, things like that. Report writing, a good amount of my time is writing police reports. I have to document all the contacts that I'm having. That quite frankly isn't really in there as much as it should be, but trust me, I'm writing a very fair amount of police reports. Presentations, so those are going to be presentations that I'm presenting in classroom to students, as well as some information, small presentations that I might be giving to staff, teachers.
Can you give me an example of one of those?
Sure. So over at Neil Armstrong, the health division invited me over to give a presentation on fentanyl. They had done a huge block on dangerous drugs, and they invited me in to come and speak about it, which I was very thankful for. My thing is I will always come, just invite. So I did a big presentation, PowerPoint slides on fentanyl. It was an all-day thing, and I really enjoyed that. Yeah, thank you. Meetings, so this could be meetings with, school admin, meeting with parents. Parents will call my phone, I give my phone number out to parents, so like, hey, if you want to have a meeting, if you want to talk about something, let's get together and have a conversation, so that's meetings. Training received, so that's either, maybe it's some in-service training at the police department, but mostly it's just like, DIE training, bias-based training, things like that, that I'm receiving from the district. Safety and security, so basically, like if there's somebody on the property that shouldn't be, or, you know, maybe a staff member is having an incident with somebody outside of school, that's something that I'd be brought into and something that I would document under safety and security. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're gonna talk more about the type of subtypes of calls that I'm doing and documenting inside this data collection form. So for adult crime, so it's adults, all crimes besides child abuse. So any student that's reporting a crime to me that's been made by an adult, the data's there. Child abuse is there, so basically any sexual abuse, any child abuse, physical abuse, anything that's coming through DHS is then routed to me. So that would be under the child abuse. We've got community outreach there. We have my bias training there, equity training, disturbance and threats. So basically any disturbance, any threats, fights would fall under that category. Equipment, so if I'm needing IT to help me out, Enrique is awesome, thank you so much. Follow-up, so any criminal investigations that I'm getting, I'm following up on, so that's what the follow-up is. So that's me contacting students, contacting parents, interviews, things like that, on the phone with whoever it is that I need to be to make sure that that case is wrapped up and taken care of. Let's see what else. Forest Grove Police Department's on there, so any kind of training that I have with Forest Grove Police. Big one up there as well is the juvenile, so basically that's gonna be juvenile, all crimes, non-child abuse. So that would be like a juvenile is reporting to me another juvenile has committed what would be considered a crime, and that's what I'm investigating. So any juvenile crimes is there. We have mental health, so if some kiddo or staff members having a mental health crisis, that's logged there. Parents and families, again, with like some type of meetings or phone calls. Public engagement, which is like general, so basically like maybe me being at an event, like meet the SRO, something like that. School-related policies and procedures, I'm up there doing stuff. Got the threat assessment, I'm up there doing stuff, meetings with students, so if like students wanna chat with me, a big thing for me is like, I don't need to only know about what's going bad, let me know about what's going good. So that's part of that as well. I've got traffic up there, we've had some traffic complaints, I try to enforce some traffic around the school zones when I can. Administration in school, so basically, I'm meeting with admin, school staff about stuff, I'm meeting with teachers about stuff. In academics in general, just kind of meeting over like what your guys' goals are and kind of how I can fit in and help achieve the district's goals. That's about it in a nutshell for me.
Do you have actual numbers to go with this?
Yeah.
Could I have those numbers, please? Text it to me or email.
Yeah, the slide actually indicates the number, so if you look at the.
On the slide.
the
Well,
page.
I don't, I see an estimate of maybe 42, 43. No, I don't see the.
Yeah, sure, I don't see why we wouldn't be able to provide that for you. Thank you for the question. And if I may, I'll transition to Colleen.
I have one other question.
Sure.
So I saw at the beginning, you said build positive school climate. So what are you doing exactly?
Basically, what I want the kids to know is that I'm not there to kick rocks over and take you to jail. I'm there to be a resource. I'm the resource and school resource officer. So that is, if you have questions about stuff, I'm here. If you have concerns about stuff, I'm here. That's what I mean.
So how are you communicating that to those people?
That's exactly what I say. I'm a resource to you guys.
Right, so are you going in the classroom or just?
Yeah, so like during like lunches, I'm there during lunch, in the halls during class, they can, contribute to that. Basically just letting them, put a face with a name, if you will, and, let them know that I have an open door policy. And they can always reach me by phone.
I guess what Kate's getting at, has it been a presentation to the whole student body?
Yes, there actually has been. So, in the beginning of the school year, I was introduced to the high school students. And then I went around, all freshmen, in high school and was introduced to them, but that's as far as I've gone as far as.
We've done some advisory, lessons on the SRO and what he's available for as well.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah.
And we have some more data.
Yeah.
That I think will speak to some of this.
Yeah, so what you're seeing up here is our climate survey data, and I know that, we actually pushed out a climate survey, sooner than the one that's on Panorama, because we wanted some information a little bit sooner, so the high school sent one out in November, and a little over 660 students took our, climate survey, and I wanted to address the fact that we had about 62% of them, of our students who took the climate survey, identified as a student of color. We had about 48% of our students who were, who identified as male, about 48% of the students who took the survey identified as female, and about 3% who identified as non-binary. We also had a really good mix of 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders take this survey. So we had about 30% of our students were 9th graders, 25% were 10th, 25% 11th graders, and about 19% of our students who took the survey were 12th graders. So it really is a pretty good representation of our overall demographics at the high school. So it's really hard to see up here because it's really small, but the bottom question at the very bottom says, number 31, it's students who said, I've been able to meet our SRO. We had almost 46% of our students who took the survey say that they've met the SRO, which is a pretty good amount of students so far in this school year.
What was the total that?
About 660-ish, 63-ish, 64. Number 32, which is not up there, was my school is safe. We had about 78% of our students agree and 10% of our students strongly agree for about 88% of our students who feel like our school at the high school is pretty safe. Number 33, which is up in the upper left-hand corner, says our school resource officer helps students feel safe. And in total, we had about 84% agree and strongly agree. And then off on the right-hand side, it says, our SRO is accessible and approachable, and about 81% agree and strongly agree in total. So that's a pretty good indication of how students are feeling about our SRO in general.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
You break it down to our Latino population versus our other population?
So I'm hopeful that our panorama allows us to do that a little bit better. On our Google form survey, we can't break it down that much. We can break it down by, who answers the questions, but we can't really go into really good detail about who individually is answering those questions. So my hope is that when we get our panorama, and the students are taking that currently within their English classes, we'll have a better number of students who have taken it overall, and have a better understanding of who those students are that are answering those questions. That's a great question.
Yeah, I think the next time you guys come back and present to us, we'd like to hear the answer to that. We'd like to
Yeah.
get on that.
Yeah.
Jackie?
And I'm hopeful. I don't know. I have never done a survey on Panorama.
Yeah.
This is the first time, so I have no idea what that survey data will look like, but I'm really hopeful that it's.
But that was one of our concerns when we were talking about doing the school resource officer was, we wanted, something that's inclusive, we wanted all of our students to feel safe. So
Sure.
we
Yeah.
do want to hear feedback on that.
And, yeah, so hopefully we'll have that.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Julia and I are gonna talk about this one, our reality, and there's a lot of ways that our SRO has supported our students, and I know that oftentimes we think of an SRO who's coming in to, arrest students or whatever it might be, but first and foremost, that has not been the case, at all for any of our student situations at the high school. I wanna make sure that we are really clear about that. Some examples, and these are not identifying, so they're really specific situations that I've had to kind of generalize. But some of the ways that our SRO has supported students at the high school is that we had a sexual assault that got reported by a student who did not know how to go about reporting that. It was a safe and secure environment within the office and being able to report that to the SRO. We had a student who was receiving text messages soliciting nudes. had no idea how to go about, reporting that information and was able to do that in a safe, environment. And the parent was very, very, glad to be able to have that resource. We had a student with an immediate safety concern come running into the building one day. And we were able to get that student immediate help. And that was a really, like private kind of situation, that the SRO was able to help with that. We have parents who come in requesting police reports or wanting to press charges and have no idea how to go about that, right? And it could be pressing charges in a situation with their student or like, you know, because of the situation with their student or outside of that, and just being able to have somebody that they can get to, really easily is really helpful. We had, an adult with a restraining order on campus harassing, a student. And so we were able to take care of that situation and provide a safe environment instead of having to wait for a phone call, to the non-emergency and sending somebody over. We were able to immediately address that concern. It's been really helpful to have Vaughn, in our parking lot to be, deterring any kind of reckless, behaviors and driving that's out there. That's just high school kids in general driving. So that's been really helpful. We were able to have a student report an assault that happened off campus. And Vaughn was there to be able to take that report. And then the last thing that I really want to make sure that we address was the homecoming dancing that Vaughn was a part of. That was outstanding. And video didn't happen next time. But,
Okay, we expect that to be brought back as well.
but the kids love it. They thought that was pretty cool. I want to reiterate what Pat started off by saying is that we just have somebody who's consistent and showing up for our students in wanting to be there. And in the past, we haven't really had consistency when we've had to call non-emergency. We get who we get and we don't throw a fit, but we are thankful, but also it's just has not been a consistent situation at all. And so being that Vaughn has been there has just been really helpful for us and our students.
So a lot of the things that I was gonna mention have already come up, but one thing that I think our district has done really well was the process around this hiring and the amount of work that went into considering what our families and our students and staff might be feeling around an SRO, because there's a mix of perspectives and feelings around that. And I think that doing all of that homework is really helping set Vaughn up for success. Anecdotally, when it comes to demographics of students and families who are coming to talk to Vaughn, it feels pretty representative of what we see in our schools. So we have Latinos and white students and others who are coming pretty equally to Vaughn. And then just to echo having a liaison, I think through, especially in middle school, how often things will happen at school and then they continue on social media or vice versa. And the things that happen outside of school that sometimes feel like they're out of our control, it feels like now we have a partner who can help us with those things outside of school as well. And the number of families who will reach out to Vaughn directly has been amazing. The other thing that is really nice about having our SRO on campus is the ease of understanding roles. So since Vaughn gets to work with us every day in our schools, he sees what is the school part versus what is the law enforcement part. And we have pretty good boundaries there, and we've learned how to work together. When I was looking back at that list and the question about trauma-informed training, although you haven't had official training, he sits with us, and so he gets the modeling of what that looks like on the day-to-day. And then the presentation on fentanyl was absolutely amazing, really well received by our staff and our kids. Also, the kids they love the stickers from Vaughn. So when we're talking about how we create relationships, Vaughn has to show up with like this giant roll of stickers. And if he doesn't, like the kids get upset. But just one last positive story. Last week was like a bit of a week at NAMS with strange odors in our building, and we had to call 911, and Vaughn shows up in his car and like parks up front, and all the kids are evacuated. So they're all like 850 kids outside in front of our school, and Bon's just like, hey guys, and all the kids are like, yeah. Like, so excited to see Bon.
That was.
And it was just like, a moment of joy during this like crazy day. So, I just echo all the things everybody else has said. I don't think I have anything additional to add, but I'm just really grateful to have a partner in our SRO.
Great. I was wondering, how often, Officer McPhee, are you at Neil Armstrong? Like, are you there a set day a week, or how does that work out?
So, I try to be there Tuesdays and Thursdays, like start my shift there and end my shift there, but, quite frankly, it depends on what happens that day. Because, Tom McCall can call me, Joseph Gale, and I may need to leave and be over there for the rest of the day on an investigation, but
Right, but if nothing was going on, you
Tuesdays.
are there Tuesdays,
Yeah.
Thursdays.
Tuesdays and Fridays.
Great,
Yeah.
okay. You guys have any other questions for
The
Savannah?
days
So-
at the high school?
The rest,
Yeah, the rest of the days.
yes, ma'am.
And what's a typical day, from like 8 to 4 or?
My work day is 8 to 4. Usually, I've got, as soon as I wake up in the morning, I've kind of got some voicemails and things to go through and just kind of plan my day based on how that looks. Yeah,
Yeah, well, there's no typical day.
there's no typical day.
I'm sorry, I said that.
Although-
You read my mind.
Although we do start the week, on Mondays, and we sit with Bon in our
Yes.
admin team meeting and talk about like, what are some things that happened over the weekend that we need to be aware of? What are some things that you're working on this week? How can we support you? What do you need from us so that you can do what you need to get done?
Yeah,
And then, we do a pretty good job of also following up on Friday to kind of say like, what are some things that we are done with?
Yeah.
Like, what can we?
yeah, what have we accomplished? What's next weekend look like for us? We've done a really good job of communication, in my opinion.
So I just wanted to say, this presentation was laid out in the IGA, and so we have another one, and we have some more data to pull in before we get into the spring, where we'll bring back the IGA. But this was, again, we will bring something similar to this kind of thing. I think, Pat threw it up here, but it's a work in progress. We wrote that MOU, that IGA. Some of it's working, some of it's maybe not. I think the general thing, I think Juliana is correct around, I think the work that we did, the foresight we put into it, I think is paying off, and how, this is rolling, but we'll plan and adapt and keep moving.
Thank you for the presentation, and I wanted to ask, I'm gonna put Navy on the spot, but I am curious to hear, like, from a student perspective at the school, just you personally, what you've heard or envisioned or how that's been going, but at the next presentation too, it would be great to hear from a couple kids directly, and in particular, maybe some kids that were part of that 17 or 20%. I know you can't tease it out of that, but maybe a kid that was not thrilled about an SRO and has been able to see, how has that changed, or how will that change? It would just be nice to hear from, someone else mentioned different sides of.
The problem with that, though, is that it's still just one person's perspective.
Oh, sure, but
I'd rather bring you data from all kids, because we get into a problem there, because this was a very political process to begin with, and people are gonna say, well, you chose that person, so it gets really hard. We can look to see that, but I think the survey data is where we hear from all kids who have an opinion and put their opinion in there. We can pull that kind of thing. I just get worried about,
Well, I just think, this, keeping just the student voice in the front, and just hearing even from our student rep, right? Like, what's the vibe? And like you said, work in progress, and definitely there's been kids, I'm sure, that have been very thankful that that's been the case. So I think, just as we all provided anecdotes here as well, just a couple student anecdotes, I would just appreciate, whether they're both sides or no sides, or just someone that's interacted with one. Everybody that interacts with one, I don't think there's any question that it's been a positive, it's just multiple positive things that have happened. So I guess I'm just asking for that student piece, and then with that data, the kids that are saying they're disagreeing, how are there focus groups or what? And that is part of kind of this ongoing process of how you build a program, to be able to get with kids that still aren't sure, what does that look like in the system and what the structure, and those just are part of the bigger conversations I know you're already having. So, it's the right people planning. I think you guys all have the right, the right perspective on what it's supposed to be. So I really appreciated this. I did have a question too about the outside calls. So many of the calls now coming from inside. Are you guys still getting, what is the percentage of calls still coming from outside the school to the 911 about school-related things? And I'm sure it's education about, oh, we've got an internal person, the school property, telling parents like, this is where we want these calls to come from. But I'm sure there's still some coming, and do they route those then to you or?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Good question. So what usually will happen is mostly on the weekends, because if it's like during the week, the students are letting their families know that I'm their contact person, or their school admin's letting them know I'm the contact person. So, so it works well during the week. On the weekends, what'll happen is a patrol officer will take the initial report and basically get all the information, write a good report, and then he routes that report to me. So when I come in Monday, I know what happened over the weekend and what I need to pick up and work on.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then the other piece too, I imagine the need for more of bond, right? Bond can't be everywhere all the time, but I would be interested to see data from our elementary schools and additional recommendations for, this is the number of calls we're getting. This is the only guy we have. This is what's happening, and what would be recommendations for increased staffing or staffing in our K6, or what that looks like the next time. Yeah, me. I mean, that was what I'm doing there.
Yeah, so I can say personally, I have been advocating for an SRO for like 3 years now, like whether through SSA or through strategic design plan. I've always wanted one, especially coming out of COVID. But taking my bias out of it, especially coming out of COVID, there was a lot of uncomfort towards police throughout the school, and there was like a lot of concerns about having an SRO. But I think that through the years, it's definitely become like less of like a disdain thing, and it's definitely becoming more accepted. And I think honestly, a lot of people just, especially once they meet him, like they just realize, oh, this guy is just like here to help us out. He's not gonna like arrest me right here, right now. And especially when there's a lot of fights at Forest Grove High School, I personally felt very unsafe, and a lot of people also felt very unsafe. And we've already seen that from the data that has decreased massively. And I think just like, I mean, that's not small, but like the statistic changes like that, I think are just really important. And they definitely show, like, regardless of what the public opinion is, I think that the changes are like undeniable, and I think it's very good. And I'm very, very glad that it has happened.
I know. Thanks for the feedback, Dave. We appreciate that. Any other questions or comments? I would just say, when you guys see this coming up on the agenda next time, if you do have something specific that you want to hear from them about, then you could let them know beforehand. You could shoot them an email or whatever, and then they could come prepared with that information. Like you just heard, we definitely want to hear more about the demographics and opinions from different ethnicities and such. But if there's anything else, we'll let you guys know. So we appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Because I know on city council, the presentations that are going to be included are many times included with the posted agenda. And so next time, if we could pre-link a presentation when appropriate.
Yeah, we won't do that.
Okay.
Because we want to present and tell you about it. We will, you'll have this now. You can look through it. You can see if there are more questions or where you want to go. But we want to explain.
So how will we have it now? That's my
What's that?
question. How will we have this presentation now?
We'll send it back through. It'll be.
It's always, and once the minutes are approved,
Then it'll be in that one.
The minutes.
Right.
The approved minutes. But
Yeah,
if
it's
you
just kind of hard to see the slides.
Right, it was, I would give you that next
So,
time.
I don't know, so maybe we can, yeah, that would be good. That'd be good.
Well, and there might be, like, if I had seen some of that before, there would have been a couple of these questions that I probably could have floated early to say, hey, I'm gonna ask these at the meeting, and there might have been a chance to have a bigger discussion, but again, so it'll be posted in the minutes, so if the community wants to look back at
It's
it.
also in your Chromebook folder right now, so I
Well, it's in the Chromebook, yeah.
I can send it to you.
Oh, is that
Separately.
Okay. All right, thank you guys very much.
Thank you
Have a
very
nice
much.
night.
Thank you. Good job. Success.
And we do like the new uniform. I think it makes a big difference.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our second presentation of the evening. We're gonna be doing the strategic plan update for quarter one. We have the cabinet presenting tonight. David, John, Eileen, Kim, Enrique, David, Arturo, our panel. Welcome.
Just to remind you, if you go to the next page there, Enrique, again, it started 5 years ago, but really kind of crystallized last year. We centered around 4 goals. The first one around instruction and learning, raising rigor, making sure it's high quality. Then we also centered around behavioral health and wellness goal. There's a family and student engagement. How are we communicating to all of our community? And then the last one is kind of, how do we improve and make more efficient our organization? So with that, we've got kind of our leaders gonna go through, we're not reading everything from these slides, but trying to hit the high marks, but the information is there for you to go back and take a look at. With that, I think we're off and rolling on goal 1.
So I've got goal 1. I think we're gonna go literally in order here, so that we can go down the line. So goal 1 is focused on instruction and learning. And it reads, focusing on high quality instruction, facilitated learning experiences, high achievement, cultural relevancy. Within goal 1, there's 3 objectives. So we'll go to the first objective. In essence, the first objective is centered around creating an instructional framework for our system. Okay. And so within that objective are 3 strategies. I won't read those to you, but in essence, doing a needs assessment to help inform an instructional framework is really important. Developing an instructional framework that is K-12 that will help guide and create a vision for what teaching and learning should look like in a class every day. Many of those instructional frameworks around the country have similar cores to them, but we want to develop one eventually that is very Forest Grove centered, right? Research informed, Forest Grove developed. And so on the far right, it gives you a little bit of a progress monitoring on those areas. What we've done so far is we've held listening sessions, curriculum and instruction department have held listening sessions actually at all 11 schools. Soon there'll be an email before break, giving our entire staff an update on how those listening sessions went, what were the outcomes of those, what were the feedback. And so we're gonna share that in action, short-term and long-term actions associated with that feedback. And so we were able to hold those, over 125 teachers attended the 11 listening sessions over the last 3 months, which was great. What we haven't started is the actual instructional framework, because we're having to do this needs assessment and have these conversations. We have started to introduce various types of instructional frameworks with our principals, so that we can begin to kind of build our mental muscle around what do these look like and how can they help us in our system. So that's strategies 1, 2, 3 on objective number 1. Objective number 2 is around our learner profile. And our learner profile are the 6 attributes that our community told us they want every student to graduate with. They're on the outside of the circle there. Resilience, communication, critical thinking, empathy, collaboration. It's hard to read what's that? Responsibility, very important one. Those 6 attributes are what our community told us they want every graduate to leave our system with. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So where we're at in this area, the learner profile, we want to see embedded in our curriculum. K-12, we want our students to be able to learn about those 6 attributes through various paths throughout their experiences. So what that means is, what we haven't started yet is embedding those learner profile competencies into our curriculum and into our instructional framework. We're not there yet, right? We're just simply not there yet. We have to do a lot of learning and exploring about what those attributes mean to us, and start taking like bite-sized steps on what that looks like. So what I'm proud to share with you tonight is that we've started work around establishing an innovation steering committee. And we are going to, the second part of this year, be investing in studio classrooms where teachers are going to be using these 6 attributes and trying things, taking risks, embedding them in their curriculum, learning some lessons, what's working, what's not, how are students responding to this being embedded into their teaching, so that we as a system can learn from. And so we'll be starting those studio classrooms. We'll be set aside funds for grants for teachers to help embed those attributes in creative, fun ways in their classrooms, as well as investing in teachers going and learning experiences about how to do that well. So instead of going system-wide, another thing, we're gonna take our time and really invest in some innovation classrooms to help us see what's the power behind these attributes being embedded into our classrooms.
Do you have those classes already?
We don't. We have a steering committee that's gonna help, teachers are gonna help us coordinate what that looks like. And we kind of have a framework of a budget on what we're gonna invest into those classrooms to start seeing that work happen this year. Yeah.
What did you complete in that top one? You said in progress or completed. So what have you completed in that?
It's or completed. So what we've completed is we sent 2 teams to Mattel for Kids to learn about the best practices around the country around these attributes, but everything else is in progress. Next slide. The last one, a little background thing going on there, is MTSS. Really, objective 3 is around MTSS, and this is where our literacy and math work is housed. So if you go to the next slide, there are 7, quite a few different strategies. This is where you'll see ELD, science of reading, literacy, MTSS, math, math best practices, all of that kind of academic area is embedded in this objective. So we know we're in progress and completing, we've adopted literacy, had a literacy adoption, but we're in implementation of that. We're in the process of ELD adoption and a math adoption. We have over 40 people, 40 staff members involved in the math adoption right now, which is pretty awesome. And which is a pretty significant number of teachers representing every school. We have grade level representatives as well. Pretty proud of that work. We're 3 sessions in out of 6 or 7, depending on how our work goes, and doing a lot of learning around math best practices. Our MTSS system, we partner with student services. That's where we're being responsive to the needs of students who might be struggling with literacy, math, or social emotional needs. We have our 100% meetings, we have 20% meetings, but we still have work to refine how we respond to tier 2, tier 3 intervention in all of those areas. We're certainly not there yet, but we are working towards that. And lastly, what we haven't started is our math and MTSS best practices with principals. So as we might have shared in the past, we have monthly learnings with principals at campuses, instructional leadership learning. Much of our learning so far has been centered around literacy best practices, science and reading with principals. As we go into 2024, we'll be shifting to math best practices, and if we have time, certainly MTSS refinement, how do we improve those systems. So this is really big picture. This is a lot of work going on at one time. I want to thank our CNI department, our staff. They've been working tremendously hard to move this work forward. So that's goal 1.
I just have a comment.
Yeah.
The emails that you send out on a weekly basis, I just want you to know those are helpful, keeping the board in the loop about what's going on. And I really appreciate the bullet 1 where you said work until stay focused until the end of it. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, any other questions for Arturo? I think we should do questions as each one presents, and then move forward. So any feedback questions?
I just have one about the tier 2, 3 interventions and a timeline on what you guys are thinking for when those might be.
Yeah, they're in place right now. They're operationalized. There are 100% meetings and our 20% meetings. They have been in the past. It's just refinement. You know, when and how are we intervening? Do we have the right interventions in place? All those types of things, and I'll let you elaborate.
Yeah, it's also about making sure that systems work when we're in 100% meeting. How can we make it efficient? So Elena and Cassie do a really nice job. They've been working on embedding the literacy and SEL So that's really working well in Arturo, and our departments have been talking about now, how do we integrate the math piece? Just so that it can go smoothly, we have enough time to do that, teachers have the resources they need to talk about those things, and so that's kind of our next step. And then we have really good models at certain schools, and then we kind of replicate those models as we go. MTSS is going to be a multi-year plan, even though we're already implementing interventions. We don't stop intervening, it's just the process by which we use to do that. We're starting to refine, and it's working really well at the schools that are doing the SEL and the literacy.
Great. All right, thanks, Arturo.
Okay, goal 2, behavioral health and wellness. So developing a system of social, emotional, behavioral health support. You can see the rest of it there if you want to go to the next slide. So this is our first objective, building a sustainable system. I'm not going to go through the strategies here, but you do have, I made you a glossary, a little cheat sheet of all the acronyms and all the things.
I really appreciate that.
Because my wonderful team who does all this work, Cassie and Christina and Christine and all the rest of them, they're not here to elaborate. So if you have really specific in-depth questions, I will write those down if I can't answer them for you. We'll be back in January to present to you. So right now, we've done a crosswalk of our social emotional standards and our SEL curriculum. We have CHAMPS and PACS implementation, and those are classroom management engagement curriculums. We have our coaching resources. We have our student success coaches. We have done and continue to do collaborative problem solving trainings. And we've developed teacher resources for routines and procedures. So that comes from our SEL work and classroom management for engagement. We are updating our behavioral program manual. So we have behavioral programs within the school district for kids that receive special education services, and we're updating those to align with best practices and the things we're doing across the district. And then we have second steps, digital implementation for counselors. So we went from paper copies to all the digital implementation, got that curriculum in the hands of all our counselors, and that's easier to use and it's up to date. Okay, objective 2. This, by the way, is a picture, this year's picture of all our school counselors and mental health folks in the district. So we do that every year, so that's the brand new one. Okay, this is all around school counseling and behavioral health support. So strategies 1 to 3. One thing I know that we're really proud of is aligning our school counseling with the Ask a National model. And so that's when our schools become ramp schools. The high school is a current ramp school, and we're working with other schools right now to go through that process. We're doing targeted outreach for culturally relevant services. So we do target culturally relevant services within our community and outside the community as much as we can. And we have folks to help coordinate those things. We are in year 2 of Teen Intervene implementation, and Teen Intervene is our substance use prevention program. And that's going well. Family engagement activities. We have been doing what we call We Care Deeply series with parents. So we're trying to get more participation. That's always a challenge, but we're going to continue those. And there's a poster right out front you can see that kind of explains what we do there. Sources of strength. I think Nate mentioned that he's really excited about that at the high school, and we've expanded that to NAMS this year. So that's really great. And then teen mental health first aid in our Health 2 classes at the high school. So teen mental health first aid is a way for teens to respond to mental health situations and how to handle those things and where to go if they have resources, they need resources. And then QPR training is our suicide prevention training. That stands for question, persuade, respond. And I believe we have almost every building trained at this point, and we continue to do this. I need my own cheat sheet. I hope
There's a lot of them.
I hope Cassie's not listening. I know Christina is right now, but so this is build and refine a tiered system of social, emotional, and behavioral health supports and integrated into our MTSS system. Our strategies there on the left, and we continue to do an expansion of our social emotional learning survey. And I think we talked about this maybe over the summer or beginning of the year, but we have I think almost all of our schools participating in that. And that's just a specific grade levels. coaching for teachers to identify cell instructional strategy using the impact cycle model. So we have our 2 instructional coaches for student success coaching, and we continue they're really busy. They're really busy. And we're updating our SEL coaching playbooks. So coaching playbooks are really what give teachers strategies and help student success coaches focus their work. We're updating our FBA and our BSP process for students who have tier 3 lagging skills. So that is when we need to know more about a student and when they need specific supports. And aligning literacy and SEL core during MTSS meetings, which is what Arthur and I just talked about. Our future action is the Department of Education adopted SEL standards, and so we'll be doing some professional development on that. We're going to integrate those standards into the journey of a graduate. I called it journey of a graduate because I think that's where we're at now. And then we're going to look at a needs assessment for high school social emotional learning skills instruction and do a needs assessment for evidence-based specially designed instruction for lagging skills. And then audit our current behavioral specially design instruction practices and provide training to staff on how to determine the effective amount and frequency of SDI. Lots of acronyms, sorry. So lots of stuff going on, but still a lot to do.
I'll just add, the journey of a graduate, we're working through with that committee, the innovation committee is naming our attributes. There's been language out there around portrait of a graduate, learner profile attributes. There's been different names, and so we got feedback last week, and we hope to land what exactly we're calling that moving forward with this work. And one of the options is journey of a graduate attributes.
And I said that we'll be back in January. We're supposed to do a presentation on this, but I'll be reaching out to you guys to see what you maybe want us to focus on during that January. I think it's a work session. Yeah. So if there's anything in here that you really want to learn more about, we can definitely bring that back to you in January.
I just want to give a shout out to these programs, the Sources of Strength and the Team Mental Health First Aid. Those are great. That's great. And excited about that.
Yeah, I would say just shout out to Cassie and our counselors and our care coordinators. They've done a really good job of aligning all these practices and making sure it's accessible for schools. And
yeah, I like it.
I have one question. So are the aides working in the district, whether they're special ed or regular ed, are they getting the training also?
yes, they are.
But I think we would say right now, we want to increase that opportunities for training. I think we're still looking at, we would like more time with our IAs.
Yeah, if a building's getting QPR trained and the aides are in the district at that time, they're getting that training. And we have done some really good targeted training on CHAMPS this year for instructional assistants at the schools where there's implementation. And just thanks to Christina for that. She really takes care of our instructional assistants and makes sure that they have the same tools that.
Thanks, Christina. Your shout out. Okay, any other questions or comments, Kim? Thanks, Kim. We appreciate it. John, you're up.
Actually, we're skipping over here.
Oh.
We got out of. I know. I just want to call out the cool Argyle option we had on the previous slide. We had to pay more for that as a premium. So goal 3 is family and student engagement. So actively empower and value the diverse perspectives of all stakeholders while engaging our entire community through accessible, culturally responsive communications and effective engagement strategies. Basically, refine what we're already doing well, because we are doing a lot of things well, but in our community meetings, we found out that there is a portion of our audience that we need to do differently by them so that they can feel that they are connected to the district. And so that's kind of the overview of what we're working on here. The objective 1 is creating new and strengthening existing avenues, and then reaching out and making sure we're fostering that sense of belonging, participation, and identity safety. Following with our themes here, those were our strategies. The things that we are in progress or completed are here. We are scheduling out Superintendent Parker to be in existing meetings that are already going on. That's what existing means. Scheduling visits to the Migrant PAC, which is a fantastically deep and established parent activities commission they do a lot of fantastic work. So we want to go where they are. It's a large group of mostly our Latino migrant families, and we're on their calendar to go in and do a presentation and also set up a two-way communication Q&A with these families so that they can have access to Superintendent Parker, that they can have questions to the district and have those answered on the spot. Also working with Juntos and PTO meetings throughout the district, where I've scheduled Superintendent Parker to be at these various meetings throughout the coming final 6 months of his tenure. Also setting that up so that when we bring in the new superintendent, we already have those established as something the superintendent comes and does, so that can pave the way for the new superintendent to come in and have those same opportunities, which will be important as that new superintendent gets to know our community and vice versa. Secondly, scheduling some coffees with the superintendent. So we really kind of want to have some of this low-hanging fruit opportunities for parents and community members to come in and talk with the superintendent, trying to meet them where they're already at some of these already established. We've done coffees with the superintendent in the past. I know other community organizations do those currently, like I know FGPD does some. I know Cordelius, Washington County does some. So I think that will be another opportunity for individuals who might not be into a PTO or just a general community member that want to talk about the district and have that opportunity to meet with Superintendent Parker and talk with that. These final two is a little bit heavier lift than we were imagining. And so we're really trying to make sure that as we reconfigure our parent advisory councils or commissions, that we do that intentionally and do it right. It's a heavy lift because these are actual real committees that need to have parent representation, and they run the meetings. They follow the same rules that we do here in open meetings. So we're in talks to figure out how to best do that, and then how that dovetails with Senate Bill 732, which is an Educational Equity Advisory Committee. That will also play a role, and we think that there's some synergy with that. We can pull from individuals who are on these PACs, that they can also potentially work with this SB 732 Advisory Commission, which would advise the board and the superintendent on educational equity impacts of policy decisions and how that affects our underserved student groups and how to best support them. Superintendent Parker is in talks with our ESD to kind of figure out best practices, how other districts have set that committee up. This has to be in place by the fall of 2025. So we have some time to work on this and we want to do it right. So we're still kind of collecting that information. Maybe we can go to the next slide. Number 2, develop, sustain, and grow authentic strategic partnerships with the community. So really reaching out and working more in concert with the community. This first piece here is we've done this in the past where we had principal for the day. Since I've been here for 7 years, we haven't done it, but Kathy and I worked hand in hand to bring this back. And I think it really landed really well. We had a lot of great participation and a lot of great feedback. We tried to get a community member into every one of our schools, that they came in and kind of shadowed the principal for about an hour and a half, or a certain one was there for the entire day. So it was actually a lot of fun. We had, and there's a little bit of a slideshow after we go through this point that I'll share with you, but we had both city managers from Cornelius and Forest Grove. We had the Chamber of Commerce. We had other business members, so it was a lot of fun. We got them in. They got to participate with students, shadow and learn a little bit more about the school, and work with the principal. So it was a lot of fun. We're also in working to figure out the best way to implement a family resource center and finding the right person to kind of work to head that up. And so it's a heavy lift. We're trying to figure out what type of staff that is, finding the funding for that, additional funding for that. We already have some earmarked funds for that, but also where is that person going to be housed, and how can we provide that service for our entire community. Because right now we have certain allocated funds, grant funds that go to certain populations of individuals, of our students, but not someone who's kind of incorporating the entire district on family needs as far as resources go. Future actions, scheduled time with community partners, kind of building off the success of this principle for the day. We're making inroads with community members and businesses, and where we want to have opportunities for our students to partner with those, whether it's government, whether it's private business, to have students go in there, do job shadows, be participating at learning more about those opportunities. So that's kind of where we want to go with that. So this next is about a minute of a slideshow that just shows our different folks. We had Peter Brandom, he went and toured Fort Hill, got to read to some third graders, I believe. He had a great time. Cornelius Elementary, Michael Cook stayed there the entire day, which is fantastic. He was there through dismissal, just had a great time. We had Claudia Yakis from the Chamber, back to her old stomping grounds. She got to see a lot of familiar faces all in the background. Sure what that was. Jesse Vanderzan was there. He got to read to kindergartners, I believe, toured the building. Centro with Angeles Godinez. She had a great time there. This is our Mike Sloop, who's with 5 Star. They're going to be working on Neil Armstrong. He actually got to conduct the band in the band room, which was pretty funny. And then Cody Jeffers was working, it's our Parks and Rec guy. He was at Dilly, had a great time. These are little swag bags we created for them as a thank you for them participating. It had some stuff from the district. We had some treats baked by the culinary program at the high school. They were well received. It was a lot of fun. Huge thanks to Kathy for partnering with me on that. It was a lot of fun to create that, and I think people had a good time. Last, our objective 3, this is really centered around our attendance efforts. This is a huge, heavy lift that Cassie and Kim have been spearheading, and they drag me along, and I try to be positive in my interactions, but they're the ones that are doing most of the work. We kind of serve as the steering committee, but we have a bigger committee that takes in representatives from all of the attendance teams throughout the district. And we have worked to set goals, including each building's school improvement plan, develop an attendance communication calendar, sharing that throughout the district. Attendance questions were included in the climate and culture survey. We're working on an attendance guide. What are we calling that thing?
Playbook.
Thank you, playbook. That's more official than guide. In the future, we're looking to integrate attendance into the family engagement activities. We're working that in through the communications plan. Back to school, we can hit that pretty hard. In our parent conferences, hitting the attendance really hard. So those are the things that we're already planning in the communications plan. I think that's pretty much it for goal 3.
Okay, anybody have questions for David? Questions, comments?
I guess whenever I see this piece of it, you've heard me say this before probably, how will you know as you move forward that you're being successful? I guess some type of an idea where you want to end up, and what does that look like, and what will be happening in the district if you're successful. And I don't want an answer now.
Good. No, I haven't.
I don't want you to make up anything.
No, I'd never make something up.
No, seriously, I think having an idea of where you want to go in terms of kind of an end product, not that it's ever over, it'll be dynamic, it'll keep improving, but just being real clear about what the end in mind looks like.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to get into a lot of it, but I think how we started this was we had a portion of our community saying we want more. And I think as we follow up with that and we have more opportunities for people to be engaged, that will become fantastic. We got more, or we have a less of a portion of people saying we want more.
Got more of what?
More opportunity to interface with the district, more opportunities to get the information they're looking for. That's what we're trying to set up with having Superintendent Parker be in the community.
So I guess that's where I'm going.
Yeah,
So some type of an idea about,
I think it's a climate survey, that's where that data would be coming back.
okay,
We did a lot through focus groups, last empathy interviews. But again, I think there's, what you're looking for is like, are we improving, is it working? And I think that's really built in the climate survey.
yeah, a little more specific about overall what's working, but also what are the pieces that aren't working, what's working well, and then being able to modify and move forward. So I think you knew that was coming, you.
Of course.
Well, I had
Brad, if you want to.
a similar comment about the struggle that the city still hasn't been able to figure out how to get people for years to come to the town meeting, right? To come to the city meetings. We tried the coffees, I was on the policing commission, and the police department does do the coffees, but I attended several of those, and there were the same 3 people from the community that came, and occasionally extra families. And we kept trying to figure out like where, and it was asking people like, what do they want to be connected, but then we'd say, well, what about coming to the meeting? But then nobody comes to the meeting, so. And I think we get that, but I think it's maybe part of a bigger conversation about some of these standard things that we've done where maybe you catch 4 or 5 new people. Isn't maybe worth the bang for the buck. And so what does it look like? I mean, no one's gonna come to the school board, or it's intimidating to go meet an officer if you didn't have a greeter. So, you know, that was one of the things our community group tried to figure out, like, why is nobody engaged at this? Well, we didn't have a greeter at the door. People would say, well, I showed up, then people were just in the back, and what, do you just walk over? And so I do remember going to a superintendent coffee in Hillsborough. There were probably 10 or 15 people, but it was a round table, and it was a great discussion. So the question becomes, exactly to Brad's point, is it's probably a menu of all those things, but some of those things that have been done, and we keep trying to, we went to Rose Grove, we went and had it there and brought food, and we still had four families, 4 people come. So we still haven't figured it out. So I think it's still being honest about the conversation about it's okay to maybe not do that, but what is it? And it's hard now because people don't have a lot of time, but maybe just keep at it, but I just to say that it's not something that's easily fixable, because we can figure it out. And now I think the town is thinking about not spending a lot of energy on the town meeting when we're getting the same 80 people, but we need to engage 25,000. So in this new day and age, what does that look like? And I know that's already been talked about.
Okay, great. Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
All right, so the next goal is goal 4. It's all about creating a resilient organization, and John and I are going to tag team this one,
So objective 1, recruit, develop, and retain staff who are connected and committed to the success of our diverse student population. So in progress to support strategies 1 through 3, they're listed there off to the left. Implement a new teacher survey to identify areas of need. I already shared some of the results in the previous presentation from this fall. We implemented that and garnered some feedback. Our continued partnership with PCC and Northwest ESD for Grow Your Own programs. One predominantly looks at high school students and the educational program and helping them all the way through into college acceptance, college completion, and then coming back to our district and work as teachers. And we're very excited about that. And Osvaldo Garcia Contreras has done a great job getting some funding through our migrant summer school programs to pay them to work during the summer. So they're still connected with our district and they're getting some hands-on experience. As I already spoke previously, we're going to expand participation in job fairs. We feel it's an untapped resource, and we will expand that both in person and virtual. And then begin development of a mentor teacher program for new staff. We heard this loud and clear. This is something that you haven't heard of. We've done it in prior years. Out of the new teacher survey results and out of feedback from staff, we're hearing that I need support, we need support. And so we've written that into our Title II grant for this year, and we're very excited about putting that together. That's very much in progress at the very beginning steps. And then also future action, a few years out, revisit our evaluation system. As we gain clarity with our profile of a learner or journey of a graduate or that work informing what instructional improvement looks like. Okay, so now let's revisit our evaluation system. That was back in 2012 that we put that into place with Charlotte Danielson's rubric. So we're working on that. So objective 2, healthy, resilient systems that encourage shared ownership and collaboration. And here's some of our key indicators and successes.
So I'll take over the first one, aligning practices. This year, we are looking at how do we have our business and HR practices in alignment, and how can we improve efficiencies in the end user's experience. So employee onboarding, electronic record keeping, and leaves. How do we help support employees through leaves, especially with adding the new Oregon paid family medical leave, and making sure that our processes and our practices are consistent and the same for all employees. So we've spent a lot of time over the last 3 months really looking at these 3 systems as our start. And then we have a whole list of other systems that we want to keep adding to, but these were the 3 big heavy hitters for this year that are going to be pretty impactful when we get those completed. And hopefully we'll have all 3 of them done by the end of this school year. But
So the aligning of practices, the idea there is that making a better experience for the teachers that are in our system or coming into our system in the future.
Correct. The employee onboarding right now, it takes a few weeks or a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks to get somebody through. We went through a process of just looking at what that system looks like, and there's a dozen emails, and data is entered into several different systems, and emails are going to different people at different times. How can we streamline that so the employees that we're recruiting and onboarding and have a better experience? They're not getting 6 different things from us.
That's a good idea.
So, hopefully it'll help the system from start to finish, both in HR, payroll, new employees that have been with us, our administrators, kind of everybody. And then the online record keeping, right now we have physical files for a lot of our stuff. So going digital for HR, for accounts payable, we're pretty far on the digital avenue for accounts payable right now. The next step is to get the digital side up to the secretaries in the buildings, so it starts from the beginning through the end. And then the leaves is we're working, reaching out to a couple of consultants to help us in supporting us in developing what those practices and processes should look like from start to finish, including the employee engagement and everything for that. So we're moving forward on all 3 of those, but those are very big system changes in our departments right now. The other thing that we aligned this year was breakfast after the bell and the implementation of that based on the committee work that was done last spring. So all of our elementary schools have the same practices and same processes. It's consistent throughout the buildings. And then the last one I have here is the trainings. This year was actually kind of exciting for me. I don't know about anybody else, but we had all of our instructional assistants together at the beginning of the school year this year, and we had PACE come in and train on student supervision and playground supervision, what you should do, what you should look for, what you shouldn't do. We had some pretty good feedback on that. So it was great to be able to have all of our IAs in one place in order to provide that quick little tidbit. And then secretary trainings and admin trainings in August. We'll be having another secretary training here in January, just to keep supporting our buildings and making sure the systems are consistent throughout all the buildings in the offices.
And then that secretary trainings also, at the beginning of the year, we asked, raise your hand if you're new in your job within the last 3 years, and every hand went up except one. So that just impresses upon the prioritization of training and ongoing training. Climate surveys. I'd like to thank Kate and Christy on helping with the district climate survey. We did a major revamp. We looked at multiple sample questions, and we came up in a district climate survey committee made up of administrators, both community presidents, administrators from every level, 2 board members, myself, and we put together teacher, staff, parent, and student surveys. Those have been pushed out, so that's exciting. We're getting results back in already. And then district level department survey. We've put that together and we're instituting that. And we're working with Panorama as we speak to make sure that it's not a very, very long survey, one continuous. We're trying to work with them. So, you know, there's some major, you know, questions. What building do you work with? How long have you been in the district? And then check a department. And the next question would be, how often do you interact with that department? If you say never, then it goes, okay, you will select the next department and go on. Otherwise, right now, the way we're working with them, it's one big, long survey. So we'll get a lot of feedback on the first 2, 3 departments and not much on the, you know, the final 3, 4, 5 departments. So that's what we're working with as of right now this week. And kudos to Juan Lopez for tirelessly working on that, and to the entire committee. Thanks, board reps.
And last we have on here is our financial resiliency as part of this goal. And this year, really wanting to start looking at that long-term planning. And the 2 big ticket items that we have is our technology and our curriculum plans, like long-term. What is our adoption cycle? What is making sure that we don't have 2 or 3 coming up at the same year, making sure that we're on track, looking at our technology needs and the replacement schedules. Those are 2 of the big, to make sure that it's consistent and we don't have, you know, a big bump up in 1 year. We can spread that over multiple years so that it's sustainable long-term. So we're looking at doing long-term plans for those 2 in particular, and then also making sure that when we're looking at our cash flow and looking at our budgeting, we're not only looking at the current year, but we're looking at what does the next year look like and what does the following 2 years look like, to make sure that things that we put in place today are going to be sustainable long-term. And then our 24-25 budget planning, we've already started that process, looking at what could the ideal budget process look like, where we are truly meeting and aligning it to the strategic plan and meeting our board policies and increasing transparency and making sure that we're doing everything that we should be doing through that budget process. And what's that ideal? And then how can we start taking bits of it and improving it this year and then next year and the following year and doing it over like a 3-year implementation. When you look at everything that you want to do, it's hard to jump into it in a single year. But really looking and starting that work and planning long-term, and then what is that piece this year that we want to bite off for this budget cycle? And to start off, normally we don't start budgeting and doing the provisional, the labor side of it, until the end of January, early February. We're rolling provisional now. So we're starting 2 months early this year on budgeting, just so that we can get a kickstart on making sure that we're starting to make some of these efforts. And then last we have here is our bond, making sure that we are meeting all of our bond needs financially and for our community and meeting our commitments, making sure that we're on time, we're on track, we're on schedule. We meet that bond promise as we said we would. So that the bond has become a major portion of the work that we're doing now. So it's only one line there, but it's probably more work than the rest of the items up there. But there's a lot to do and a lot of excitement for it. Kathy helped put together a slide deck next that just kind of shows some of the things that we did last year for the bond. Cornelia's Elementary School, we focus on community engagement, engaging students, engaging parents, engaging community, to make sure we had everybody's voice and vision in what our community hoped and dreamed of this new elementary school. So there was a lot of community engagement and processes that happened over the last year, even before design. And this is a preliminary drawing of that. We've done both tracks, Tom McCall and Neil Armstrong, the Tom McCall gym. It is beautiful. We just have a few little things that we have to finish up there. We started on asphalt and paving across the district. The Neil Armstrong track. Neil Armstrong kitchen renovation. That one was actually funded from 299 food services, not through the bond, but we braided funds a little bit there. And then roofing across the district and HVAC. So there was a lot of work that was done this summer. And we have a lot going on starting next year. So we'll have Cornelius and NAMS, Forest Grove High School CTE, Dilly, are our big projects. And then a lot of other smaller projects are going to continue. Safety and security and technology will be big ones too. So we're already off and rolling on all those planning. So. Objective 3 is around safe and welcoming environments. We are kicking this one off primarily focusing on the physically safe side of it and making sure we're meeting the bond commitments and doing this work in alignment with the bond. We started a year ago with our safety and security meetings, trying to figure out what facilities improvements do we need to do. We've had assessments done, multiple different layers, the SEPTED, the fencing, the site, cell and DAS, lots of different surveys that we've done. And now that we've had all of the surveys done, we're working on the improvements for next year. Most of our safety and security, physical improvements will be done in the 24 calendar year. And Pat Hess, who was presenting here earlier, has been a huge partner in that work with us. NAM's vestibule design is probably the biggest component of that, where Neil Armstrong will now have a vestibule with an office that will be up front with a direct line of sight to the entrance. So that is the biggest safety and security improvement that we will be doing through this project. Pat has also implemented a weekly safety message across the district. So not only just creating that physically safe, but starting on the second component of this, of the education. Once he has a little bit of time to breathe, then we'll start talking about the education side of safety and security. Yeah.
Okay. And then also to create culturally relevant and inclusive school environments, we're continuing quarterly district-wide equity systems support meetings where every school site has a team that go to those meetings and coordinate activities and learnings, and those individual school teams bring that information back to their own school sites and the training. Also continued collaboration with Dr. Freiberg to create PD modules that help teachers and staff deliver culturally relevant, inclusive school classrooms and safety. And Osvaldo Garcia Contreras is leading that one.
Challenges. One of the things we're looking at for the challenges of just implementation of the strategic plan is there's a lot of work. There's a lot that we want to do. There's a lot that we need to do. And it's a matter of trying to look at it as what can we accomplish this year? What is sustainable? What is manageable? What, to be able to set us up for 3 years from now. Just from my experience and looking at like the budget process, I wanted to get it all done in 1 year. I wanted to, make sure it's aligned, make sure everybody is engaging, buildings are engaging with their staff through their budget process, and that's all aligned to the strategic plan. And we have this, whole idea, but then taking that and stepping back a little bit and going, okay, what is first step? How can we use one group or our grant side or our cabinet to test it for a year and see, how does this work? And then try to adapt and kind of mold it on and start here and then kind of go out from there. So that's one of the hardest things I think in looking at this is we have a lot of hopes. There's a lot we really want to do, but stepping back and making sure we're doing it right from the beginning. So, yeah.
Okay, we're sliding in. Go ahead. Questions?
So You can't give me the answer right now, but, you know, I think going back to the 1990s and where we are now, and the dollar amount that we're spending for SROs, security, scanners, protective glass, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I'm curious of what percent of our budget that we're now allocating for all these safeties, and we need to do it, and I understand that. And the second part, and you don't need to give me the answer now, but is there any money out there to help with all these dollars that we're putting into security? Because when you really think about education, I think about education, you know, the whole picture, but, you know, there's only a small portion of the general fund that really goes for instruction and curriculum, and the majority goes for salaries, benefits, et cetera. And, you know, what percent of the money is going for security now? I'm just curious.
I don't have that off the top of my head.
No, I don't think so, but, you know, I mean, and we need to have it.
I did want to say though, like, our community supported the bond and we have a significant investment in opportunity right now for the facilities side for safety and security to do the improvements, the Neil Armstrong improvements, the window glazing, the landscaping and fencing, and all of this stuff is part of this bond that was passed, that we now have the opportunity to do some of these physical safety improvements, the cell and DAS, where we wouldn't have last year. Even if we would have identified all of this need, we would have had to have come up with an operational plan from the general fund on how do we do this and what's our first priority and move forward. So we have an amazing opportunity right now to do some of these significant improvements for safety and security facilities wise. As far as staffing wise with SSA and the student investment account, we now have that opportunity to be able to invest in additional IAs for supervision. And then, so we have all of our school counseling, our school increase, and there's a lot of improvements that we've been able to do with those funds that we would not have been able to in the past. So these additional resources have been able to give us that opportunity.
And there's just, I'll be quick because there's just two more things here, but I'll move it. My goals, superintendent goals, the first four were basically, you just heard, it was progress on the first four goals of the strategic plan. The last two we did was in my evaluation, there was this comment about visibility. So I've been tracking that. 1, 2, 3, 4, great. So in the first 14 weeks of school, I've spent about 16% of my time in school visits, attending community meetings, meeting with the city managers, classroom walkthroughs, equity meetings, anything that I'm out in buildings interacting with staff. And it's been about 16% of my time. It was up over 20%, but the last 3 or 4 weeks has been a little bit rough on that. So it'll be something as I start moving into the start of the year again, just getting refocused about being out in buildings, that kind of thing. The last goal in my superintendent goals was around the long-term
Longitudinal growth.
Thank you. Longitudinal growth goals. We don't have any reporting on that, but what I did want to point your attention to is January 8th to January 26th will be when we do our next assessments for students. And so middle end of February, we'll be reporting out and we'll get our first opportunity to kind of see growth in both literacy and math. So just throw that one on your calendar. And with that, I know that was a long one, but it was also, there's just a lot of work that's going on right now around strategic plan and how we're doing. So again, I want to thank everybody for their work in putting this together. And then just any closing questions.
No?
If you do, go ahead and get that to us and we'll collect that and get answers.
I just have one comment. And it's just that through this whole presentation, there's just a tremendous amount of things going on. just in so many different areas. And I guess I'm hopeful that it all comes together in terms of improving the outcomes for students here in the foreseeable future. So I know all those parts that were described play a part in student success. So I'm hopeful that that'll get us some good student outcomes coming forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Fred, you want to say anything?
No, I was gonna think about Mark, but I'll skip it.
We'll save that for another day. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it. All right, we're gonna move on to action items. Let's do it. Okay, number one, appoint budget committee members. The district received 2 applications for the 3 open budget committee positions. As a reminder, there are 2 3-year positions and we'll have the next position open. Since we received 2 applications, we know these community members, we decided to forego the interviews and go ahead and make recommendations to appoint them. So I'll make the motion on the first one. We can discuss if you want, and then I'll call for the vote. I moved to, the first candidate was, Mr. Pete Truex. So I moved to appoint Pete Truex to a 3-year budget committee position ending June 30th, 2026.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Yes.
Thanks, Mark. All right, second person is Melinda Fisher. Melinda has already served on our budget committee in the past. She's great. So I'm going to move to appoint Melinda Fisher to a 3-year budget committee position ending June 30th, 2026. I'll second. Thanks. Kate seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, moving on to appointing the civil rights coordinator. Superintendent Parker is going to present.
So House Bill 2281 was passed last year, and it pretty much says that all public schools, public and charter schools, designate a civil rights coordinator to monitor, coordinate, and oversee district compliance with state and federal anti-discrimination laws, oversee investigations of complaints, discrimination, provide guidance, and respond to questions on civil rights issues. This is very similar to another role that we have in the district, the Title IX coordinator, who is basically doing all the investigations around sexual discrimination, sexual harassment. So with this, we're recommending that the person who already does that job, the Title IX coordinator, because it's all kind of related, that we not nominate, but we actually assign John O'Neill to. It's a very similar kind of position. We're not exactly quite sure. Everything like Title IX is there's trainings, it's very outlined what we need to do. This is still a little fuzzier, although civil rights, the violations of that seem fairly obvious, but that's what we're recommending this time around. Boy, I did not make that very clear at all. Again, we're recommending that you appoint John O'Neill as our civil rights coordinator.
I'll go ahead and make a motion. I move to designate John O'Neill as the civil rights coordinator.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. I think you really said yes. Aye or yes, Mark?
Yes. Sorry.
Great.
Yep.
Okay, you just have a little bit, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, Eileen is up. She's gonna talk to us about the long lead electrical purchases for Cornelius.
So tonight we have the long lead electrical purchases for Cornelius. We are working with Pence right now with our Cornelius replacement, and in January, we'll start to go out to bid for our partners, the electrical and the plumbing and all of the mechanical, the subcontractors. But right now, we don't have the electrician assigned to the project yet, but we do need to get our long lead items started. It's about a 65-week lead time for some of the equipment, and so in order for us to get it in on time, we're looking at working with Brightside Electric to purchase our, the electrical panel boards, the switchgear, some transformers and disconnects. And he would purchase that through Platt Electric. He did go through and talk with EOFF Electric Supply and North Coast Electric Supply for costs. Platt is the one that was responded and was within budget. So.
Brightside. Between Platt and-
Well, Brightside is our electrician that's gonna purchase it through the
Oh, okay.
supplier, because we can't purchase it directly to this, from the supplier, so we have to use an electrician to purchase it. So it's, yeah, a little complicated, but we would be purchasing through Brightside, and Brightside would be purchasing through the supplier.
Okay.
But this is $345,000, for the monthly equipment.
Any questions for Eileen? I'll make a motion and then we'll see if there's suggestions. I move to approve the purchase agreements for the long lead electrical equipment through Brightside Electric for $345,000, utilizing the Cornelius Elementary School bond fund. A second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, Eileen, sticking around.
The only other one I have tonight is our builder's risk insurance for Cornelius. Pace is our insurance company that insures us for all of our other needs. Pace does not insure for builder's risk at the size of a project that we have. So we had to go out and outsource this through a third-party contractor. And Alicia with Assured Partners has been helping us in procuring this policy. She went out to CNA, Chubb, Cincinnati, Zurich, Liberty Mutual, and Hanover. And overall, based on our project and our size and their ability to cover us for that project, we're recommending to go with CNA Risk for $112,404.
Any questions for Eileen? Okay, I'll make the motion. I move to approve the builder's risk insurance coverage through CAN Risk as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You have to put down for real. Last action item, superintendent search firm selection. So the board received proposals from 4 search firms and has reviewed them carefully. At this time, I'm recommending that the board approves Human Capital to be the search firm that we use for this process. I'm recommending them because of their connection with our community, their experience, diverse staff, their accessibility, and their commitment to this project. Any questions for me? Okay, I'll go ahead and make the motion and move to select Human Capital to lead the superintendent search. A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, that's all the action items. Future board items for discussion.
So for tonight, Val, I just have a comment.
Okay.
And it's regarding the school calendar that we passed at our last meeting. And you know, it's done and it's set for next year, which I understand. But I just wanted to, I'm disheartened that we did not increase learning time for students for next year. Just to be clear, we removed 2 instructional days during Thanksgiving week. These instructional days were moved to October 11th and then June 11th for K-6 or for the June 12th for grade 7, 12. I think the October 11th date is a great date. That's in what I would say is prime learning time. So the days that were added to the end of the day for each of the different grade levels, it was added to the end of the year. I think many would agree it's not the best time for student learning. We added another day to the calendar, which is a professional development day on November 18th. And, you know, adding a day to the calendar is kind of a big deal. Increasing learning time for kids is important, and it's been much harder to do than I thought it would be. This year should have been the year that we added a day for kids. Learning time in school, embedded in the school year matters. I don't want people to misunderstand my comments here. I'm simply advocating for the importance of meaningfully increasing instructional time for kids. It's the first thing I'll look at when calendars come up again. And that, you know, I know it's done for next year, but I I think that we need to look at ways to add instructional time for kids in the future calendars. And that's my comment for tonight.
Thanks, Mark. We appreciate your comment, and a lot of us, if not all of us, agree with that comment and your opinions, and we support that as well. You don't support having more student contact days? Okay, I'm not gonna speak for us. I'll speak for myself. Mark, I agree that it's very important to have more student contact days, and hopefully we'll be making that happen again sooner than later.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Anything else? All right.